Alright, guys, I want to have a little bit of a firearms discussion here. This one's going to be on hunting rifles and calibers. I own, let's see, golly, let's see, four, four or five different hunting rifles, which I don't hunt. I don't really like to get up early and go hunting in the cold. I don't like to do that. But I have certain rifles because they are America's calibers. So, if you want to go start getting into hunting, you want to get you some good trigger time on a rifle to get your basics down with sight picture and steady breathing to keep your rifle steady when you're drawing on a deer and you're going to pull the trigger so you don't jerk the trigger and make it go left or right. 22, Ruger 1022, best thing out there. 22 is cheap to shoot. There's no recoil, so you don't have to anticipate any huge kick. And then after that, you can move up to 223, and they're really good. I haven't ever owned one. I've never even shot one. I've shot an AR, this 223, and it kicks just a little. It's nothing major. Then you can go up to 243. And I've never shot one of those. I've seen a few of them, but I've never shot one. And then there is the ultimate. What? If you went to a hunting camp, you would see this rifle everywhere. The Marlin 336. 3030. 3030. I've owned one of those. And that thing was the most accurate rifle I'd ever shot. And it's lever action, like an old cowboy gun. And that round is trusted without any fail because of the ballistics. Like, I shot a water jug with it outside here, just plinking. And when it hit that water bottle, that thing exploded. And it's just that when it hits your target, like if you're hunting a deer, when it hits and it goes in, it's like a explosion in there, and it sends off bone fragments and tissue, and it makes like secondary missiles inside of your target. And it will drop any deer here in Georgia within 100 yards. Easy. One oddball caliber that I've never had the chance to shoot, I've only seen the rifle once, is the 35. 35 Remington. And they say those will lay it to you pretty good on the recoil side. So if you can find one, those are pretty cool. I would pick one up if you could find one. And then there's my favorite hunting caliber, the good old Springfield 30-06. The 30-06 has been around for ages. Like since World War II. The M1 Garand in World War II was 30-06. It was chambered in 30-06 and it held 8 rounds. And after the 8th round comes out, you hear the ping sound and the magazine flies out of the top. I have a Remington 783 bolt action in 30-06. And I love that. I love that gun. It's awesome. So, those are kind of your calibers. 22, 223, 243, 30-30, 35 if you can get your hands on one. Then there's like 444 Marlin. And then 30-06, 270, 308, 280. Which 280 is kind of shot away. You don't really hear much about the 280 rifle anymore. And then I own the 7mm Remington Magnum. And that gun is destruction. Like when it hits something, it destroys whatever you hit with it. And then there is the big brother to the 30-06. The 300 Winchester Magnum. And I own one of those too. And that is a rifle that if you get one that has the synthetic stock, plastic stock, that's black, You really need to get some experience behind rifles before you start shooting that or the 7 millimeter, because the amount of recoil they generate. If you do not hold it in your soft spot right there, and you put it over here on your collarbone or like right here, sometimes I've heard of people shooting the 300 Win Mag and it breaks their collarbone or dislocates their shoulder because they really kick. But for the 30-06, the best one I ever owned, I mean, this Remington I've got, it's really good. It's a really good rifle for a budget, you know. But the best one I ever owned was my first one, the Savage 110. It was wood, like an old looking rifle, like it had been through the woods here in Georgia or Alabama or somewhere here, like it had been drugged through the woods and rusted a little bit from the moisture in the air. And when you shot that, you didn't feel any recoil because the wood put weight to it. So when you're shooting something that kicks a lot, like a 300 Win Mag, 7mm, 270, 30-06, the more weight the gun has, this applies to shotguns too. The more weight the gun has, the less felt recoil you will have. The lighter the gun, the more felt recoil you will have. So if you go into a pawn shop or a gun store and you pick up your hunting rifle and it feels light, and it's a 30-06 or something like that, yeah, you might want to put that one back and get you a wood one, so you got a little weight there, so that you can stand to shoot it. Which usually, when you're hunting, if you place your shot right, you might fire one and drop your deer, and that's really all you're gonna need. But you're gonna load probably what, 4 rounds maybe. That's usually about what they hold. You might have to, if you don't hit the deer or whatever it is you're hunting in a certain spot, it may not drop it in one shot. And you'll have to do a couple follow-up shots. So you need you a little bit heavier of a gun so that your shoulder doesn't hurt and you start shaking like this. Because if you start shaking, the rifle starts moving, and then it's easier for you to jerk the trigger, and you'll miss. So jerking the trigger, what does that mean? So basically, you'll fire it with this part of your finger right here, the pad of your finger right there. When you put your finger on the trigger, if you do not have it right where it needs to be and you squeeze that trigger and your finger slides this way, it's going to pull the barrel of your gun this way. If you got too much of the pad, like in here, it's going to go that way. And it's going to throw your shot off. That's what jerking the trigger is. And then some people get buck fever. They see a nice pretty deer, they draw down on it, but they can't pull the trigger. They freeze. And then there's involuntary trembling with a rifle with a scope, which is where you hold it and you're looking through the scope, but you're shaking, like you're trembling. And it's not something that you mean to do, it's just something that naturally happens because you're holding up that big old heavy rifle. So you just kind of hold your breath, like in Call of Duty when you hold R3 on your controller and you hear your character go and it steadies your shot. That's what that is. That's how you alleviate that. And then right as you're about to squeeze the trigger, you let your breath out and bang. And it will go right where it needs to go. And then, like, if you're going to be hunting hogs, like you're going to go boar hunting, the best caliber I've heard of for that is .308. And Savage makes their hog gun. That's what they call it. And it's a bolt action .308. An interesting fact about the .308, that is what the M60 from Vietnam is chambered in. It's a .308, but it's a machine gun. pretty awesome. And the Mini 14 is 308, which is kind of a upscaled M1 Garand, but they changed the round from 30-06 to 308. And then for the M1 Garand from World War II, it was going to be chambered in 308 with a 10-round magazine. But then the guys in the military were like, well, we have literally thousands of M2 ball ammo, which is 30-06. And they told John Browning, chamber the gun, make it chamber in 30-06 so we can use it in the war and get rid of this ammo. We'll have plenty of ammo to supply our troops. So he made it into 30-06 with 8 rounds. And for where I live, like, if you live in like Georgia or Alabama, Mississippi, you don't need anything more than 270 or 30-06 to do what you need to do. The 300 Win Mag, 300 Winchester Magnum, is a long-range rifle. That thing will reach out and touch things up to 1,000 yards. And when you're shooting something like that in your yard, please make sure you know what's beyond your target, because if there's nothing there to stop that round from traveling, it will go up to 1,000 yards. And you could hit something and not even know you hit it. And one other thing, when you are target practicing with your hunting rifle and you're sighting it in, if you're trying to get your shots to land on your paper with your scope, please wear your hearing protection, because those supersonic cracks from like a 270 or a 30-06 or a 300 Win Mag are super loud. Like my dad, he bought him a 270. That's his favorite caliber. He loves it. He told me, you can keep your 30-06. I'll take a 270. I got one too. It's that top one up there behind me there. And he shot his without hearing protection. And he said both of his ears, he was deaf for 5 minutes when he pulled the trigger. And so that's another thing that people always ask about, that I've seen people ask gun stores about. Like, what makes these hunting rifles so loud? Because, you could shoot one out in your yard at 8 o'clock in the morning and wake the whole neighborhood up, and you got some pissed off neighbors. So what it is when you put your round in and you pull the trigger on it, it's coming out of that muzzle at about 2,900 feet per second. It's hauling ass. And the faster it moves, the bigger bang you get. The 300 Win Mag comes out at 3,500 feet a second. My Browning I've got behind me, this 300 Win Mag, it's the wooden one. I don't know if you guys can see it back there. That thing is super loud, and boy does it kick. It kicked so hard, I put a scope on it, a really cheap scope. And I sighted it in, with my 30-06. I sighted that scope in. And I was like, well, I can stick it on this just to have one, And I shot it once, and it hit right where I was aiming on my target, which I used a Coke bottle, a 2-liter Coke bottle, and it hit right dead center. And I had 3 of them set up out there. So I racked the bolt, put a new round in, pulled the trigger again. It kicked so hard that on that second round, my scope was off. I had to readjust my scope. And it's a wooden gun. It's a Browning A-Bolt. And I paid an insane amount of money for that gun. But I pulled the trigger, my scope was off. I was like, gotta do it again. Readjust it, pull the trigger on the third one, it stayed. Every 2 shots, it will knock the scope off. Out of 0. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a new one. So I went and got I think it's a Nikon. I put a Nikon on it. And that Nikon, it stands up to that recoil very nicely. And then my friend that passed away, he had a cousin that lives in Kentucky, and he hunts only with a 300 Win Mag up there. And my buddy Russell, he told me about this. He was like, man, he called me up. He was like, man, I gotta tell you what happened to my cousin when he was hunting last year. And I was like, yeah, what you got, man? He's like, he's got that Remington 300 Win Mag that he hunts with, and he shot a deer at 200 yards. 200 yards. And it hit the deer, went straight through it, killed it, completely field dressed it for him. It just took everything out. And then it hit another deer that was standing 50 yards up and killed it and dropped it like nothing. So yeah, 300 Win Mag it's a bit overkill. Unless you're hunting out in the mountains in Montana, out west, hunting like goats and stuff like that. That gun would do you very nicely. And then like there's people say like, you can shoot a bear with one. Yeah, you can drop a bear with one, but your shot placement has to be a lot more precise. And if a bear is charging you, and you hear people say, oh, you need some bear medicine to drop one of them. The bear medicine for Georgia folk down here is 44 Magnum. 44 Magnum is a killer cartridge. It's mostly for revolvers, and that's what you would carry in the woods. Big old Ruger Red Hawk or something. But I've got a lever action over here that's chambered in 44 Magnum, and I think that would drop just about any large game that I'd want to hunt. But I don't hunt. I just had them because they're cool. And the 300 Win Mag, if you ever get one, for anybody that's interested about ammo price for one of those, it's about $2 a shot. $40 is the cheapest I've found in ammo here in my state. And that's not even for like the federal HydroShock. This is just like Winchester, standard Winchester 180 grain. $40 a box. Whereas your 30-06, your 270, they're in 308, they're about $18 a box. So for any hunters out there, good trigger time, 22. And hunting for rabbits, 12 gauge or 20 gauge shotguns. If you're starting to hunt deer, 223, 243, 30-30, or 30-06, 270, 308, 7mm Magnum, or in some states, 300 Win Mag. Just depends on what you as a hunter, what your needs are. But that's what I wanted to discuss a little bit. Just talk about some hunting rifles. And maybe I'll get my license this year to go hunting. Give me some tags. I don't know. But they're just cool. They're just cool. And people, kids talk to me and they see my guns in here. That's a sniper rifle because it has a scope on it, like in Call of Duty. No, they're not. They're hunting rifles. Like, I tell people, that's not a Barrett. It's not a Barrett M107 50 BMG. It's not that. Or it's not the German G43 sniper rifle that the Germans used in World War II. Or the Springfield 03 or Springfield Alt 3 that the Americans used. It's not that. They're more for hunting. But 30-06, I swear by that caliber. My dad swears by 270. It's really just more of what you want in your ballistics, your trajectory, and your energy. Foot-pounds of energy. 300 Win Mag is the top. The foot-pounds of energy you get with one of those, my God. I've seen guys hunt here in my area with one of those and shoot a deer at 75 yards and there's almost no meat left to save. It completely field dresses them right there on the spot. You don't even have to gut them after you kill them. You just shoot it, it drops, and you drag it out. So maybe you guys will enjoy this. I hope so. And best of luck to everybody that hunts out there. I hope you kill your trophy deer this year, or whatever animal you're going out after. And whatever caliber you want to get, just look at the ballistics and maybe your recoil and choose your caliber. Whatever you need to do, there's a caliber to do that for you for the hunting purposes. Everyone take care, have a great night, and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Thanks.